For over 2 decades, West Midlands police have searched for the most deadliest and illegal weapon in Britain. A list was compiled of guns that were used multiple times, and on that list, the 6th gun was the most deadliest. It was involved in 11 known crimes and 3 murders, and has been passed from gang to gang. And although it has been 9 years since it was last used, as far as police know, they have been no closer to discovering its whereabouts. This is the story of what police have dubbed as Gun No.6. The story starts on Sunday the 23rd of February 2003. At 2:55 in the morning, West Midlands Police received an anonymous call. The anonymous caller described a gun battle that was going on between 2 rival Birmingham gangs outside a Birmingham party that was happening on Proctor Street in Nechells, the B7 area of Birmingham. But when armed police arrived, they found no victims or witnesses. In fact, the only evidence left of a shootout was 2 stray bullet casings that they found on the road. The bullet casings were collected as evidence and sent to a forensic lab where it was first entered into the British Criminal Record System. The bullets were identified as coming from a black CZ75 semi-automatic 9mm pistol that had been made in the Czech Republic, and is unknown how it entered the UK. It has been speculated though that the gun could have possibly entered the UK after the Balkan War in the 1990s. Ballistic experts say that the gun was primarily designed for military use and was designed to cause a maximum amount of tissue damage. After the Dunblane massacre on the 13th of March 1996, where 43-year-old Thomas Hamilton walked into Dunblane Primary School in Dunblane, Scotland, with a 9mm pistol and also a Smith & Wesson Magnum revolver, and shot dead 16 children and their teacher, firing a total of 109 rounds, and also injured 15 others before killing himself in what is known as the deadliest mass shooting in British history. The Dunblane massacre led to a recommendation of the gun laws, making it illegal to own a handgun for private use. The law also made it illegal for someone to sell or be in possession of any firearm unless they have gone through a strict licensing procedure. And under strict Home Office guidelines, a person in possession of a gun must hold a firearm certificate, which are only issued if a person has legitimate sporting, research, collecting, or work-related reasons for ownership. The Firearms Act also prohibits a person from possessing a gun or any other type of firearm if they have been given a custodial sentence when convicted of a criminal offence. There are over 586,000 people in the UK with a firearms or shotgun certificate. Gun No.6 was next used on the 24th of March 2003, when a gang of youths were seen walking through a parade of shops near George Street West in Winson Green, the B18 area of Birmingham, at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. The gang of youths asked for details about another gang before speeding off in a car. Minutes later, a rival gang turned up and fired shots. When police arrived, they found 7 bullet casings, identifying the gun used as Gun No.6. The third incident happened on the 13th of June 2003, just over 3 months later, and again in Winson Green, when a 24-year-old man was shot in a drive-by shooting at 11:30 p.m. The victim was shot in the back, the neck, and the arm, and he survived his injuries. Bullet casings show that the gun used was Gun No.6. Detectives ruled it as an attempted murder, but the victim did not want to cooperate with police and refused to talk, saying it was a case of mistaken identity. The case remains unsolved. The fourth incident happened the next day, on the 14th of June 2003, outside a club entrance in Lascelles, believed to be the Plaza Club on George Street, in the B19 area of Birmingham. At 4:50 a.m. in the morning, another drive-by. A car drove past the club entrance and opened fire. The victim, who was shot in the leg, refused to talk and went home instead, where he then called for an ambulance to come and patch up the wound to his leg. Shell casings at the scene identified the gun used as being Gun No.6. The fifth incident happened on the 20th of August 2003, back in Winson Green. At 1:30 a.m, Gun No.6 youngest victim, a 19-year-old victim, was shot in the back and foot, but the 19-year-old refused to talk. The gun then disappeared for 8 months. The sixth time Gun No.6 reappeared was on the 9th of May 2004 in Birmingham city centre, where what police described as a gangland gunfight that occurred at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. Luckily, no one was hurt, but a woman who was sleeping in a car nearby narrowly avoided the crossfire. The gun was then used for the 7th time the next month on the 28th of June 2004 in Hockley, in the B18 area of Birmingham, in a small cul-de-sac called Hockley Brook Close. Shots were fired at parked vehicles in the cul-de-sac, and a bullet was also fired through the wall of one of the houses. But the occupants of the house refused to talk, saying they didn't want to get involved, and upon inspection of one of the vehicles that had been shot up, £3,000 worth of heroin was found in one of the parked vehicles. No witnesses came forward. The eighth incident happened on the 2nd of October 2004 on Thimbermill Lane in Aston, the B6 area of Birmingham, where there were reports of an incident of a high-speed car chase and shots fired. Although it was caught on CCTV, and this time there were witnesses, police were unable to trace the vehicles involved, but bullet casings showed that the shots were fired from Gun No.6. The next incident came over a month later on the 20th of November 2004, and it was to be the start of a serious set of events that would ruin lives and continue forward. On the 20th of November 2004, a group of 11 men, believed to be from a gang known in Birmingham as the Johnson Crew, tried to push their way into Air Nightclub in the Digbeth area of Birmingham to avoid paying. Once inside, they robbed the clubgoer of his gold chain and at gunpoint before pistol whipping him. But the doormen turned on the lights in the venue and shut the music off, causing the gang to flee. They then drove to Radius nightclub in the Arcadian, but the doors were locked. The crew was known to go around town, rushing club doors, so as to gain free entry into nightclubs, which would sometimes work. The gang then made their way in a 4-car convoy to Premonition nightclub on Bristol Road at 3:30 a.m. and tried to force their way inside through a side fire exit instead of the front doors. But the doormen challenged the gang and tried to usher the gang back down the alley and onto the main road. Security feared that something serious was going to happen when they said they saw members of the gang then start to cover their face with bandanas. Enraged at being turfed away, one of the gang members fired a single shot, and the gang then started shouting threats. The bouncers said that they heard someone in the club shout,
"It's Millie, don't go outside."
Then someone outside shouted,
"Go on, move off."
Someone else shouted,
"Show them the thing's real."
and someone else also shouted,
"Smoke 'em, make 'em know it's real."
while someone else shouted,
"Pop 'em."
13 shots were fired from 2 guns, injuring Dennis Killen, the club owner, and 2 other bouncers, Gary Hinsian and David Nwalisa. The club owner, Dennis Killen, had gone into the alleyway before the hail of bullets to call his staff back into the club and was shot in the abdomen. One of the bouncers, David Nwalisa, hid behind a phone box when the shots started being fired and was shot in the knee, whilst the other bouncer, Gary Hinsian, was just grazed by a bullet. But one of the bullets tore through the chest of bouncer Ishfaq Ahmed, aged just 24, shattering a main artery in his abdomen. Ishfaq Ahmed was said to have died in a hail of bullets and died after reaching hospital. He left behind his then 18-month-old toddler daughter called Anissa and his partner Penny, both who were left shattered and devastated by his murder. Shell casings from the guns recovered at the scene revealed that one of the guns used in the cold-blooded murder was Gun No.6. CCTV showed that the cars driven in convoy that night and used by the gang were a Toyota MR2, a Golf, a BMW, and a Ford Mondeo. Number plate recognition identified the driver of the Toyota MR2 as Jamal Parchment, aged 22. The BMW had been brought by 35-year-old Leonard Wilkins, who had then tried to sell the car 2 days after the murder. Investigations revealed that the Golf had been driven by 20-year-old Dean Smith, who had brought the car under a false name, and they were all arrested for murder and attempted murder alongside William Carter, aged 29, Carl Spencer, aged 37, and Michael Christie, aged 33. During the trial, an armed convoy brought the suspects to and from court every day, and armed guards armed with machine guns stood outside the entrance of the courtroom. The prosecution could not prove who had fired the fatal shot, and all defendants denied murder and pled not guilty to attempted murder. But 20-year-old Dean Smith of Erdington, 29-year-old William Carter of Handsworth, 37-year-old Carl Spencer of Winson Green, 33-year-old Michael Christie of Edgbaston, 35-year-old Leonard Wilkins of Small Heath, and 22-year-old Jamal Parchment of Aston were all found guilty of all charges and all given 30-year sentences. Despite the convictions, Gun No.6 was never found. The gun then disappeared for 8 months. On the 23rd of July 2005, the 10th incident with Gun No.6 happened. 32-year-old Andrew Huntley, father of 2, originally from Jamaica but lived in Smethwick, had gone to Air Nightclub in Heath Mill Lane, Digbeth, with his girlfriend. They had been waiting to get inside Air Nightclub when he was chased down the road by a gunman, who witnesses heard calling Andrew an informer. He was then surrounded by 18-year-old Tashawn Bernard of Jarvis Road, Erdington, and 23-year-old Kemar Whittaker from Tottenham, North London, who punched him in his face when they caught up to him underneath the railway arch on the same road. Terrified Andrew was on his knees and heard pleading for his life with his arms raised in surrender, saying,
"We are brothers. We do not have to live like this."
But Andrew's pleas for mercy was ignored, and he was shot in the head twice at point-blank range, execution style. He was pronounced dead on arrival at hospital. Police investigations identified 23-year-old Kemar Whittaker from Tottenham, North London as the killer, and 8 months after the execution-style murder, Kemar was found guilty of murder and jailed for life in prison, with the recommendation that he serve 30 years. His 18-year-old accomplice, Tashawn Bernard, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for assisting the gunman. The shell casings in the murder identified the gun as Gun No.6, but the gun was never recovered. The gun then disappeared for nearly 4 years. The gun reappeared for the 11th time on the 9th of January 2009 at a post office and general store robbery in Stourbridge, Fairfield. At 8:20 a.m, 57-year-old Ken Hodson Walker and his 57-year-old wife Judith were opening up their family-run village post office shop when Judith had gone upstairs to sort out some bits and bobs, leaving her husband Ken serving a customer downstairs. But as she got up to the stairs, she heard the female customer screaming at the top of her lungs. Running downstairs to see what all the commotion was about, Judy saw 3 masked men, one of them with a sledgehammer and another with a gun, demanding cash from her husband. On instinct, Judith tried to protect her husband by fighting them off with a curtain pole, as she initially didn't believe that it was a real gun. Upon hearing the noise, the couple's 29-year-old son, Craig, ran downstairs into the shop, only wearing his boxer shorts and wielding a cricket bat to help defend his parents, unaware that there was a gun. CCTV images captured the whole ordeal as the robber holding the gun, 34-year-old Anselm Ribera, blasted 29-year-old Craig in the chest, the bullet tearing through his heart and piercing one of his lungs, fatally wounding him. The gun was then turned on the dying man's father, 57-year-old Ken, who he had been trying to protect, and Ken was shot once in the left kneecap, rendering him unable to get up. The robbers then threw down shelves in the shop on top of Ken and started jumping up and down on it in what Ken believes was an attempt to kill him. The would-be robbers had been unable to get cash out of the safe that they had demanded that Kevin open, but the safe, which contained £20,000, was on a time lock and could not be opened until 9 a.m. The would-be robbers made off empty-handed in a stolen car driven by 25-year-old Adrian Snape from Camelot Way, Small Heath, who had stayed outside in the getaway car as he was the driver. Judith said that she rushed to desperately save her son, giving him CPR, but it was to no avail, as paramedics pronounced him dead on the shop floor. Craig's fiancée, 26-year-old Lisa Bundy, who had been due to marry him soon and move into a home together, spoke of her devastation and loss, saying, "Life would never be the same again." Police investigations identified the gun used in the murder as Gun No.6. They also identified 2 brothers, 32-year-old Christopher Morrissey of Sheldon and his older brother, 34-year-old Declan Morrissey of Shirley, Solihull, as the ones who came in with a sledgehammer that was used by the both of them. 25-year-old Adrian Snape had been the getaway driver, whilst 34-year-old Ansel Ribera of Druids Heath, Birmingham, had been the one holding the gun and fired the shots. In court, Adrian Snape was cleared of murder but pleaded guilty to attempted robbery, whilst after a 10-week trial, the 2 brothers and Anselm Ribera were convicted of murder and attempted murder, with the judge describing them as parasitic criminals. They were all sentenced to life in prison and given 34 years each. The gunman Anselm Ribera was the father of Joshua Ribera, an up-and-coming artist from Birmingham known as Depsman, who was tragically stabbed to death once in the chest on September the 20th, 2013 in Selly Oak, whilst attending a memorial for a friend who had also been stabbed to death. After the post office killing in 2009, there has been no sign of Gun No.6. Police believe that the gun became too hot to handle after being used in multiple crimes and the 3 murders, and that it has been thrown into a river or a canal somewhere. But after not being heard of in 14 years, nobody knows whether it is still in the hands of criminals or even if it is still out there. The location of Gun No.6 has never been identified. In 2018, a documentary about Britain's most deadliest illegal gun was made, entitled Gun No.6, which was shown on BBC 2 at 9 p.m. on Sunday the 2nd of December 2018. And Gun No.6 has still never been located till this day.